This is Hidden Killers Year in Review, a look back at the biggest stories of 2025. This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Brueski, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
We are standing at the edge of something this country has never seen before. The Epstein files aren't just going to be debated anymore. They're going to be released. Entire vaults of documents. Names, maybe. We're still wondering about that part. Communications, patterns, timelines, the scaffolding of a predatory system that operated in plain sight across decades, countries, and institutions. And whether people realize it or not, this is going to have a massive psychological impact on millions of Americans. Survivors, families, whistleblowers, communities, people who trusted systems that protected Epstein, and people who trusted public figures whose names may now surface. This isn't just a legal moment, it's an emotional one, a destabilizing one, a vindicating one, and in some ways, a traumatic one. Because when you open a vault like this, you don't just expose wrongdoing. You expose the mechanisms that allowed it. You expose enablers. You expose the fragility of trust. You expose how predators manipulate power structures, institutions, and social vulnerabilities. So today, we're going deeper than headlines. We're going into the psychology, into the individual psychology, the institutional psychology, the national psychology of what happens when an entire country is forced to confront one of the darkest open secrets of our time. Joining us, psychotherapist and author Shavaun Scott, who spent many, many years studying human trauma, predators like this, institutional betrayal, and the psychological fallout of large-scale abuse networks. We're going to be digging into all of this topic, as deep and dark as it is today. Shavaun, welcome. Let's start here. Why do moments like this create the feelings that they do in our society? Well, right now you have, in some people, adulation, you have relief, and some you have panic. It's a very weird feeling out there right now with folks all over the board, if you will.
Yeah, I think people are confused. Number one, it affects our core beliefs about who is our country and who runs our country, and the core beliefs about justice and, are people safe? It's destabilizing, just, overall. People are shocked, or a lot of people are in denial, saying it can't be true. But I think right now we really need to know what happened and deal with the difficult emotions that come with that, and then take action to get back on course.
What do you think we're in for here? We obviously we've been seeing bits and pieces dropped over time in the last week or two. We've seen some pretty big chunks drop, but that's nothing compared to what they're saying are terabytes of information that will be released. That's a lot of information to get through in general, and then everybody's going to start digging, and I think we'll start seeing new headlines for quite some time as people dig deep into this. But what do you think we're about to see? Is this going to be like a national trauma of some sort? Do you think we're in for some massive names and people that were once beloved? Maybe that's going to change. What's your impression?
It's kind of ambiguous at this point, because there has been some buzz that the material is now being scrubbed and altered. And so I hope that it's not. I hope that we get reality, because we really need that kind of transparency in order to be able to look at what changes do we make in the way the system operates, and how we view these elite people at the top who are capable of doing such terrible things.
Do you feel like there are a lot of women and even men out there that have who have been abused, let's put it that way, I'm just going to say that, that this is going to traumatize them? and the survivors who are in their periphery, it's going to traumatize them, that there's going to just be this national re-traumatization, if you will, that things that have happened in our past, now it's just, we're just being traumatized over and over, even though we need to know this. How do we get through this if we've been there before and now it's plastered all over TikTok, it's on Facebook, it's on Instagram, it's on the news, it's everywhere. We cannot avoid this.
Yeah. I think it'll be a mix of re-traumatization on one level, but also validation, because one of the key problems that survivors of abuse have is that they feel isolated, they feel tainted, they feel that somehow it's their fault. And when they learn that, you know what, this is common, this happens to a lot of people, I think it takes the lid off the box of things that they've been holding inside. And it can be difficult in the short term, but ultimately, I think it helps a lot of people. And people will go into therapy, they'll find survivor groups. And I can see that already happening because people are saying, you know, there are things that I've buried that I really want to deal with. So I hope overall it has a positive impact, even though people do need to dose it. Just like we do with all political news, which is so hostile and contentious, we can't be absorbed in it all the time. But I think with dosing it and taking the lid off the box of our own histories and then seeking support, I think it can turn out to be a good thing.
Do you think it's going to have the same effect like the Me Too movement? Do you think it's like phase 2 of that?
That's a really good point. That's a really good way to put it. I think so. Are we going to do a better job with questioning the elite and taking action more quickly when there are rumors, not going soft on them in the criminal justice system, not using politicians, you know, for favors? And I hope it helps us move in the right direction and do a better job of protecting kids.
I was wondering almost the exact same thing. So I was thinking of Me Too, Stacey, and I was thinking, is that obviously, it started with accusations against a few people, and then it had a collective effect. There was this, all different cases that are completely unrelated to one another. People started talking. I'm wondering if we're going to see this again, if we're going to see that coming out of individuals having the confidence to do so because of the collective revealing of people like this right now.
There's power in numbers.
Yeah, if we're going to see that take place. What's your thoughts on something like that happening again? Either that was a pretty big movement in the first round, but I'm wondering, are we going to see something just as big, if not bigger?
I think so, because as much as this kind of crime against children has not been talked about, there's a lot of it. And it goes on at all levels of society, as we're seeing. And one of the most healing things for people who have been victims is to be in a group and to sense that camaraderie and the fellowship that they feel. And that helps so much with the stigma that they've carried and the self-blame. So I hope it goes in that direction.
It's going to be very fascinating to see where that all falls. The perpetrators, if their names are revealed, which will be interesting because, we're all seeing and kind of holding our breath if they're going to scrub it for national security purposes. I think the folks out there that have something to be concerned about are probably fairly concerned. But what about the survivors themselves as well? When this comes out, if they are named in this, or even if they're not, having pieces of their life, chapters of their life thrown out there to the public, and not that it's their fault by any means, but people do hold shame. People hold moments that they're not happy about because it was traumatizing for them. And now it's all out in the open, or will be all out in the open. Let's talk about that angle for a little bit and what they're going to be going through. Yes, it is great that these people hopefully will be exposed, but at the same point, there's a lot of folks out there who are also going to have elements of their life that if they're still around, wanted to be, put away, and it's going to be right back to the surface for everyone to be discussing.
And that's the hard part, for many victims, they're not as concerned about their anonymity, but those are the names that I think should be scrubbed, certainly from any public exposure, just as we, when kids are molested or assaulted in the home, we publish the names of the perpetrators, but not the victims. And they should be the ones to have control. Some of them do want to come out and tell their story, just as Virginia Giuffre has done. And that can be very healing for them to feel like, you know what, I don't need to carry the shame here. But it certainly will throw a lot of people back into symptoms of their chronic PTSD. And that's something, again, do we have enough therapists to be available to support people through that? I hope so.
Yeah.
Comment from Gen Z 367. I also think in regards to people being ashamed of coming forward, there may be some that suppressed everything. And this is now bringing up a lot of that was pushed down. So a lot of PTSD, which is what you just mentioned, Shavaun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you think it is that the Epstein case activates such a strong emotional response nationally, where obviously in the big scale of things, this is, a certain number of people who were involved and certainly affected. But compared to obviously the whole population, I mean, there's not a lot of people who have exact personal ties to this, but is it the relatability? Is it because even if you weren't directly affected by Jeffrey Epstein, the behavior like this is reminiscent of other individuals in people's lives?
Definitely. It brings up their own experiences with, and it may not even be the sexual component of it, but people who have been abused in various ways and the power imbalance, that's also triggering and can set off responses. And I think for the culture as a whole, when you hear about all the way to the top, the highest level of political involvement that's been alleged here, it really shakes people's ability to trust the system and to trust that people in the government are, working in our favor if they will abuse children in this way.
Well, and what kind of a culture do we have where we doubt our victims? We doubt when somebody says this happened to me. And I've heard from surprisingly a lot of women who are doubting these victims. And I just kind of do a double take, like, really? Really? Do you think somebody is going to talk about something so traumatic and horrific and make it up? And yes, there are those that will fabricate something like this, but for the majority, I really believe that these people are telling the truth. So it's really disheartening to hear, especially women, placing blame and not believing these victims. It makes it scarier for anybody to come out in the future.
It definitely does. And that's a problem we've had in this country forever. Well, probably everywhere in the world, is the tendency to blame the victim. On some level, it makes people feel safer that, well, I'm not the kind of person that this would happen to, so I don't need to worry about it. So all these other women, they've done something, or young girls, they've done something to cause this. I mean, I've worked with pedophiles in the past who talked about, well, this was a very seductive, my daughter was a very seductive 6-year-old. And it just goes with this kind of predatory thinking that the victim's poor judgment, or if she hadn't been drinking, or if he hadn't have put himself in that crowd at that party, this wouldn't have happened. And it makes people feel safer that they're, not that kind of person, so it's not going to happen to them. The other thing that I think we're running into now, because the country has been so divided into political tribes, and when they hear that their hero is implicated in some way, they immediately go into denial and attacking the victim that's making the allegations.
But we've seen our heroes fall before, haven't we?
Yeah,
I would think so, but I don't know if it's to this degree when you're taking it as high as this goes.
And that's what I wonder about is how are even when this all comes out, are people going to believe it? If it implicates people that they don't want to believe could be monstrous. I mean, it's not a secret that, you know, some of these people that are out there, I can think of many on both sides, you know, of both political leanings, that the answer is probably yes, very monstrous. And if information comes out about them, not going to be shocked by it. But you're still going to have people that are going to sit there and pretend that that's just not true. It can't be, because it challenges their worldview to such an extent that they're not gonna process it. I mean, and let me ask you, when somebody is like that, are they choosing that? Are they choosing not to accept those sort of things, or is it kind of one of those, they're not capable of doing this? It's just their brain is not going to process it. Like some folks don't have empathy, or some just not capable of really being able to process things certain ways without utter total mental breakdown.
Yeah, I think there's probably more of the second, that their denial is just so intense, because in order to acknowledge that their fearless leader, their hero, is a sexual predator, that would shake their identity, because they're seeing that this, as an example, their person was sent by God. And there are a lot of people who believe that about one specific person at the top, that he is sent by God. And I think video could show up of that person doing something with a child, something vividly violent or sexual, and folks would still see it and say, this is a scam. This is, a conspiracy. This never happened. This is AI. And so there's a certain percentage of people that are simply not going to accept it. And I do think that's a defense mechanism. It would shatter their world to see the truth.
Bending the rules of reality is really what it is. We're talking with Shavaun Scott about the Epstein, the cover-up, and now the release of the files as they will be released now. We'll see as to what extent in the coming days, weeks, months. Who knows how long it's going to take for all this. I don't anticipate a fast drop, but who knows? Anything is possible. Bending the rules of reality seems to be what a lot of people are doing right now in the lead up to this. We've heard a lot of discussions, people talking about, especially when it gets political, and I'm not going political here at all, because I don't care what side you're on. If you're a horrible person, you've done this shit, you need to burn.
Yep.
And that's it. To me, there's nothing political about this. I'm not more excited when I hear a member of this party might be on it, or a member of that party. It's like, okay, great, bring them all up.
Take them down.
Take them down.
Yep.
But we're starting to see a lot of rationalizing of weird things right now, and I don't know what to make of it, and I don't know that it's all being done intentionally. I want to bring up what was said last week, and she's getting a lot of kickback for it, Megyn Kelly, when she was talking about some of her knowledge of the case from a source that she has, but doubling down on, there's a big difference, and if anybody has not seen the clip, go watch the whole clip. Doubling down on, there's a big difference between a 5-year-old and a 15-year-old when it comes to predatory behavior towards a child, and not just, is a 5-year-old, does they look different of course, that's who would even ask the question. It's like, is the sky blue? Yes, one is older than the other, but it doesn't make a damn bit of difference, I would think, to most people, if there is a predator that's trying to have a sexual relationship with the 5 or the 15-year-old. Same amount of wrong right there. Wrong, no, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But it seemed, and this is how I took it, this is how a lot of people took it, it seemed that there was some rationalizing going on when we hit at a certain age, around 15-ish, of like, well, it's predatory, but it's diet predatory. It's predatory light. Like, no, There is no predatory light. That's what is going on here, and why are we seeing people try to bend these things right now, of all times, on this? Why? What the hell is going on where people are trying to rationalize things like this?
I think on some level it's back to, I don't want my guy or my team to go down, and therefore they're coming up with anything they can to make it sound like it's not that bad. And in truth, a pedophile is someone who's sexually attracted to pre-puberty children. A hebephile is a person who's attracted to post-puberty children because they're still children at 13, 14, 15. But that's a particular kind of paraphilia where this is the individual's primary sexual attraction. It is still wrong. It is still an incredible power imbalance. A 13, 14, 15-year-old is not capable of giving informed consent. Correct. And it's terrifying to hear somebody go on national television and try to say, well, it's not pedophilia, so it's okay. And sure, you can break it into hebephilia. That's still a crime. It's still wrong. It's still pathological.
I want to say that's the first time I've heard that term.
And she wasn't arguing the terms. It was that was what kind of got me about it. I mean, it wasn't like, well, that's technically this. I mean, of course we can. Okay, well, that is technically this and that. I get that. But it's the normalization, it's the rationalization of it, and that's where I'm. And I don't know. I mean, the other thing that was coming to mind, in no way, shape, or form, I don't know anything about her, and I don't know what her past is, and I don't know what her history is, and I'm not saying this at all. But could there be leakage sometimes when people are rationalizing things like this because of their own traumas of what they've gone through? That people try, no matter what, to be healthy, hopefully, and that they've moved on from things and they've healed in certain ways, but that healing looks different for every single person. I'm wondering sometimes when you have people doing those sort of weird rationalizations of, well, I had it hard too, in really weird ways like this, is some of that leaking over sometimes? And I don't know specifically here, but when I'm speaking more in general terms with people rationalizing stuff.
It sure could be that. It could also be that they grew up in one of the states that still legalizes child marriage. There's a big movement now. I have friends who are a part of it to basically say, if you're under 18, it doesn't matter what the circumstances are, you can't get married. And there are states, I believe Utah was one, where girls as young as 13 could be married and have a marriage license. And so there are probably people from these kind of subcultures who look at it differently, who don't understand the developmental damage that this does to kids. And because it's in my book, it's open. I was married at 16 and I was groomed at 15 and I went along with it. And at the time, I thought I was an adult. I look back at those wedding pictures now and I'm a baby-faced kid. I was a child. But the person in that situation just doesn't realize it. And the pastor validated the marriage, even though the man was 25. And this was clearly not psychologically healthy. And I was a needy kid. And there were so many things about this courtship that should have been red flags to my parents, that people still in this day and time just don't get it.
We've got a comment. Is it Sir Thriver? It says, why knock Megan? She didn't say it's okay. She said it's not pedophilia, just as your guest is saying. What do we say to that? What's our thought?
I'm not knocking Megyn Kelly. I'm pointing out the statement that she made twice in a row. I'm not knocking her. I am pointing it out, and I'm saying this seems like someone. It's normalizing something that's not normal. Right. And if that's not what her intent was, then I think she should walk it back and say, "Look, I misspoke. It came out," and I'll believe her. I don't think she's pro pedophilia or anything like that. But but our words matter, and if it means nothing and it was a misspeaking, then it's a misspeaking. Okay.
But it's been a week,
but
week and
it's
2
been
days
more than
now?
a week. It was doubled down on. It was just, I was weird. It was weird.
It felt
And a
icky.
15-year-old is not okay. So anybody who's, why are you knocking? I'm not knocking. It's not normal. And it's okay to point that out. And we need to point that shit out.
Thank you for
Not saying she's
that.
a horrible person, not saying, and just saying that's not an okay thing to say. So walk it back. That's all.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. So it's weird. It's weird seeing the rationalizing and the place that we've gotten into in this country on this topic and where it's heading. What else do we have in the comments right now?
Oh, let's see. Gen Z 367 says, I'm wondering what hold Epstein had on the people that were invited to his home with the young girls. If those people got there and then realized this is wrong and had a really bad situation, what were the consequences for that person with Epstein? I think Robin had covered that they, just by walking into those situations, now they were under the thumb. There was no way for them to back out, and control was had at this point. So it turns into a whole power struggle that once you walk into these situations, you can't get out of it. Now you are guilty. You are there. You are part of this. They're recording it. They've got evidence that you're there. You're screwed. So
I want to talk more, Shavaun, about your experience too. And this is her book, Nightbird. It's out right now wherever you get books, and goes into your experiences, in great detail of being, at that age, because what people are so coldly, the way they're looking at so many of the survivors and the victims, and you hear, well, she all the excuses. She should have done this. She should have done that. She should have been this. She should have been that. And it's a lot of blaming them for being in the scenarios that they're in. But when you're in that sort of an environment where everyone around you is saying this is normal, and they're older than you, and they're adults, and they're the people that should be hopefully having your best interest at heart, it's nearly impossible to see how strange things may be unless you get out of that cage, especially when religiosity is mixed into it as well. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, somebody who reviewed my book recently used a term that I thought was very apt, and it certainly fits for these girls. And Virginia Giuffre went into it in great detail in her most excellent book. Affectionately dehydrated. And I think when you come from a childhood, whether you have that kind of abuse or not that she experienced, I did not as a kid, but when you don't feel loved and you don't feel cared for, and people really aren't connected to you and supportive of you, you grow up as a young person desperate for that sip of water, right? You're dehydrated, and somebody comes along and pays you attention. And even if they're using you or abusing you, that attention is overwhelmingly wonderful. And you become very trauma bonded to them. You develop loyalty toward them. You feel like they love you. You feel like you love them. And you don't realize that you deserve better than what's happening to you. You don't have a radar for, this is wrong. I need to get out of this. They don't realize it. And this may be for many the first time that they feel cared for. And it's the way that a deprived child has this sense of self that they're not worth more. And then they get attention. If they're getting attention for their sexuality, for their bodies, they just feel like, well, that's what I'm worth. And that's what's there for. And then in my case, you combine the religiosity with this is what God wants. And you've been raised to follow the Bible, and this is what God wants. And I'm told that God has given messages, and the pastor is supportive of this. That's another layer to it.
Yeah.
So you're feeling in your gut that this isn't right, but there's nothing you can do about it because your environment says this is exactly as it should be.
And I think for me and for many of them, they don't even have that radar in their gut that says this isn't right. What they're experiencing in their gut is, this is the first time I felt important. This is the first time I felt valued. And so it feels very wrong. And I always tell people the advice, listen to your gut, is sometimes good, but sometimes your gut can lead you astray depending on how your gut developed.
Interesting.
What we've been seeing with this, and what we've been seeing with various people telling their stories, saying that they've been victims of Epstein, one of the big questions that people are asking is, why don't these individuals name the perpetrators, especially if we're going to see them blocked out? And obviously there's legal reasons for that, because they'd like to not, go bankrupt and be sued 800 ways to Tuesday because this is a very hard thing to prove. This is a very hard thing to document. And the other thought I had on it is, do they know they're perpetrators? Or if you're on Epstein Island or wherever you were, they weren't all there. They were in his homes. They were all over the place. I do wonder, a lot of these, young women, did they even know who some of these people were if they were coming and going? Obviously, Virginia Giuffre did know some of them, but some I do wonder if the scale as to which it appears he was running this thing, if there's just so many people that came that they weren't celebrities, they weren't of note, they had money and they had power, but unless you're a celebrity and you're a 15-year-old girl, you're probably not going to know who every person is.
Yeah, 100%. I think both of those things are true. They've probably been advised for legal reasons to not start name dropping at this point. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what all the consequences for that could be, but certainly, yeah, having a lawsuit against you could be very scary. And then, yeah, being in that situation where it's one man after another, multiple men, and they don't know who these people are, certainly very likely for some of them.
An interesting comment that just came in. Jacqueline said, I was groomed and molested as a minor. I have never had a long-lasting and fully healthy relationship. I'm in my 40s. No matter how hard I try to, with the knowledge that I don't need to correct my past. This is a lifelong journey for these people. This is never going to go away. My heart goes out to people dealing with this. And a lot of them are in our chat section right now. These are people who have dealt with this, who've been around this. It's coming to the forefront now. It really is.
And that's, I think, the thing that's good about this is if they feel, you know what, I'm not the only one. I'm not alone here. And as I tell everybody that I've met who has this kind of history, hold hope. Healing happens. It's not linear. It's not quick. It can take a lifetime to unpack all of it. But I think every decade people show a lot of improvement and a lot of growth. And I mean, it doesn't mean it takes a decade for change to happen, but it's developmental in nature. As we get older, we get more insight. We are able to do a better job with putting it in perspective, forgiving ourselves for errors in judgment that we had because we were young and we didn't know better. And it's something I think that most people can eventually gain a sense of peace and healing and come to a place where they no longer feel tainted by it. But it definitely affects our core being. It's not an easy path.
I'm going to imagine when this comes out and if there's names that are in there that we haven't heard yet, predators, they don't, they're not always, I guess, going to the same source for what they're getting. This is examining one of those sources. This is examining the Epstein area of where these predators got what they were looking for through him. I'm going to guess this is going to expose a lot of other networks too, that there's going to be other people who are going to, suddenly, okay, well, they're getting this over here. Where else are they getting it as they travel in their packs? Where else are they finding this type of material, these type of people that are willing to and are in operation of things like this, of networks. I would imagine that there's a lot of collateral damage beyond Jeffrey Epstein that we're about to see when these massive terabytes of data come out. Do you agree?
I hope so. I hope that we can have the blinders off as a culture, as a country, that we need to protect children, boys and girls, and we can't validate people who are exploitive, who are predators. And everybody needs to talk. Everybody needs to open up about what they know when particularly these powerful people are involved, and people cover it up for them, because it's all the enablers who are at fault as well.
And I think it's important too to look at it, and because I think we're gonna see people, and we're gonna see accounts of people when they were younger, and some of these people are gonna be old men now.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to remember, old men are still just as dangerous as the younger men. We see it in so many cases where creepy predator who's 70-something, who's 80-something, preying on kids. They still do it. So I think we're going to have to resist that urge a little bit, too, of like, oh, well, they're old.
It's just grandpa. It's just grandpa.
And, yeah.
And here's a weird thought for you. It happens in nursing homes with elderly people, where women in nursing homes who have dementia are sexually victimized by other old men in the nursing home. And those cases are rather horrifying. How would you like knowing grandma's being assaulted every night in her nursing home? I mean, old people who are predators are still predators.
It's something that doesn't change in people. If that's what you are, that's what you are. That's why I wish we could just eliminate them. But we don't. And they will prey until the day they die. It's going to be very fascinating. Shavaun Scott, thank you for being on and talking about this as we're on the verge of all this coming out. Nightbird is her book. You can get it wherever books are sold. It's her memoir, and very worth a read. All right. Until next time, for Todd, for Stacy, for Shavaun, I'm Tony Brueski. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast. This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Brueski, Stacy Cole, and Todd Michaels.
We are talking with Robin Dreeke, retired FBI Special Agent, Chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, about what's going on, the new Epstein emails that have been dropped. There is certainly more that continue to come out, and it is a prickly place right now, trying to break it all down and trying to see things in a clear light, one that is not shadowed by the optics that we all have in our own opinions on politics this way or that way. It's looking straight at the facts of, if someone did this, whoever did this, no matter what side you're on, obviously it's not okay, and it needs to be called out, and they need to be exposed. In some of these emails, Epstein also calls Trump a dog that hasn't barked. I found that an interesting phrase, and I don't even know how to take it. I'm curious from a behavioral standpoint what your take is on that, Robin.
Yeah, so it shows a lack of closeness. It shows his typical objectification of individuals, and also shows he's not an insider in his tight circle. It looked like he was in Epstein's mind that he was a pet that was able to be controlled from his standpoint, in that viewpoint. So it's I think the way he regarded Trump, calling him a dog like that, is probably how he regarded absolutely everyone, with the exception of maybe Maxwell herself. Other than that, I think that just gave him insight, not necessarily on Trump as an individual, but how Epstein saw pretty much everyone.
And everybody was a tool for him to use.
100%. And that's why he went cross, because he wasn't trying to ally himself with Trump or with Clinton or with Bill Gates or with the prince over in the UK. This was all about servicing him. I mean, and you can see it with how he regarded all the girls. Yeah. He thought this was exactly how people should be treated. It's the sickest, mind-blowingest thing when you read that book to see how he saw people. He didn't see him as people because, remember, he's not a person himself. So how can you view anyone else as a person when he's not a person? Remember, soul ripper. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Inhuman.
And he was able to live in an ecosystem that never proved him wrong. I mean, even when it did, it handled him with kid gloves because of the information that he possessed on so many other people. That's why he had such a slap on the wrist the first time he was indicted and arrested for his crimes. And then he comes back out, and then he's like friendly with all it's like I compare it to R. Kelly in some ways. Just as society treated R. Kelly, where we knew what he did. There was video of him violating a 14-year-old girl in his bathroom in front of his Soul Train award. And everybody's like, well, maybe it's not him. I want to step in the name of love at my wedding, so I'm going to go with that. And that remix to Ignition, that's a pretty hot jam. You got to admit, all that stuff over here, him with the 14-year-old, this is how society treated R. Kelly, and he had a huge career even after all that came out. And Epstein was able to essentially do the same sort of thing. It wasn't in spotlights and music videos in the R&B world. It was the rich and powerful and the elite that still felt safe enough, just as music artists felt safe enough to go and do a duet with R. Kelly after that shit, to go on tour with him after that shit, because the public said, nah, we're okay with this. So the rich and the powerful continued to have relationships with Jeffrey Epstein even after they knew the allegations against him. And the DOJ says there is no evidence that Trump participated in Epstein's crimes, even in some of Epstein's own writings. Epstein even says Trump didn't get the massages. Now, you may not like that. It may not go with the narrative you want. I'm not a huge fan of him personally. I don't care if you are. You're entitled to that opinion. It doesn't fit the narrative that I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to hear this. But I'm okay with that because it's reality on reality's terms. There's a lot of other shit here. There's a difference between no evidence of participation and no ethical concerns at all. Those are two different things, and they're very different in terms of what is prosecutable or not. Can you speak to that, Robin?
100%. We've said that on this show numerous times. Just because it's not legal, just because it's not illegal doesn't mean it's ethical. We've seen this all the time. I mean, in this case, especially going all the way back, and you hit it, his lack of his lack of, he was prosecuted back in the early 2000s and convicted, and he got a slap on the wrist. Yep. That slap on the wrist he got says more about the sentencing guidelines and the sentencer, the prosecutor in this case, who wound up going on to serve even other higher places in our government, says more about them than it did about Epstein. And the fact that, again, the brazenness of the normalized behavior is what was really shocking for so long. And that's what I think is just so, because the behavior never changed. He was never changing his behavior. Even after Prince Andrew, he didn't change his behavior. None of these people change their behavior because there's zero need in their own minds from what they saw, from the power they had, from the compromising information they had. And I don't even think they thought necessarily about compromising information, because that would be thinking too hard. They were just being who they were, which is these abhorrent people. So, did I cover the question? I don't even remember. I got sidetracked.
I think you did.
I'm going to talk about, the victims themselves, and there seems to be a fundamental crack in how one sect of our society is looking at this, and how another sect of our society is looking at this. And I don't know any better way to make an example of this other than what Megyn Kelly said just the other day. And I'm kind of shocked by it. The only thing I could think, and I hope she comes back and walks it back and says, look, I misspoke. Because we all misspeak. It happens. She's human. We're all human. She equated, there's a big difference between, I'm paraphrasing here.
It's bad.
Well, there's a difference between a 5-year-old and a 15-year-old, and that she's really close to somebody that knows almost all the details about Jeffrey Epstein, almost all of them. Not everything, because nobody can, but almost everything. And that Epstein was into the barely legal, like 15-year-olds. And this is what she says, 15-year-olds. And things like that. And they're not 5, they're 15. And just kind of moves the conversation along as if that's okay. As if a 15-year-old, as if an adult interested in a 15-year-old is not a pedophile. Like that's what was insinuated. At least that's what the conversation seemed to convey. And I hope to God she just fucked up her words and that she didn't realize how that came across, was caught up in the interview, was moving on to the next topic. I get it. I do interviews too. I get it. You kind of, you're playing ping pong here, back and forth, and your mind can move very fast. And I hope to God that's what she meant.
I hope
but
so.
I don't know if it is or not. But even if it's not, there is a good sect of society that will look at it that way. That, well, she went through puberty, so now she looks like a woman, so that must make it okay. And there seems to be some weird acceptance that people are like, well, he wasn't diddling 5-year-olds or allegedly, but it was 15-year-olds, so that somehow makes it less
they're
bad.
Close to the age of consent. They're
somehow makes it less bad. Like, no, it doesn't. They're both children.
My only response is read the book.
Yeah.
You see the impact of that action, and besides, when people say things exactly like that, you sound exactly like Epstein. That's exactly what Epstein said. That is exactly word for word what he said to rationalize his abuse of little girls. He said, well, in some societies and some time frames in history, this was completely acceptable. If you go to this state, it's this. The age of consent is this, and age of consent is over here is this. And besides that, I don't remember if I'm almost positive, I can't be 100%, but I'm almost positive that a lot of the photos he had was of girls younger than 15.
Yeah.
So rationalizing abusing girls, I don't care if they've been through menopause. I mean, not menopause, if they've been through puberty or not yet. It's stupid. You look at
what? Yes. Why is this even coming out of her mouth? Why is this even why is there even any rationalization going on? I mean, it's not rocket science to say someone looks physically different than at 15 and 5. Of course, yes, but it doesn't in any way, shape, or form make it more valid or less or more of a temptation to justify that an adult can prey on that person with less consequence because she looks more mature than a 5-year-old.
And I'll tell you what, the way Epstein did this and Maxwell did this, I don't care if they're 15 or 25.
No,
right. They were manipulated.
The book.
Exactly.
They were trafficked. So this is a big problem in our society. Tony, you and I have covered cases like this before with serial rapists, because that's exactly what this is. So when you get a certain part of our society where girls start getting trafficked like they did at this age, they are trafficked all the way up until they friggin' die. Yeah. And right up into their 20s, 30s, if they live that long. And the psychological destruction of that human being, it doesn't matter if it's 15 or 25, they're being trafficked, they're trapped, and they get trauma bonded, they get guilted, they get shamed, and they get manipulated the hell out of. And so it doesn't matter if they're 15, 25, 30, that was an abuse and enslavement, because that's what trafficking is. It is enslavement. Well, they say, and then here's what I say to because I get it. If you never touched it, tasted, or felt it, where you got really close and really gritty in the minutia of the impact it has on the victims, you don't get it. Read the book. Mm-hmm. It's got, to me, I've been harping on this one. This is like mandatory reading for anyone that is truly trying to understand the impact that this inhuman individual like Epstein has on human beings. I don't care
from the start, years and.
It's even worse at that young age, but it's because remember, Jenna, she died in her 30s, and she's still traumatized by this. All these girls are. It didn't.
It doesn't matter. Go ahead.
There was a comment a couple of days ago. Somebody had watched us talking about this, I think a week ago or a week and a half ago. And they said nobody chained these girls to the massage tables, or they weren't locked up or something to that effect. And I wanted to comment back, and I stepped back and I went, this is a person who has not seen somebody who's been traumatized and manipulated and trafficked. There's so much fear around this. And Megyn Kelly making that comment, it's so cringeworthy, because how many victims are out there going, well, I was going to say something, but wow, we're normalizing this behavior that, close enough.
Wrong.
Yeah, it was Megyn Kelly having a conversation with another female too.
Yeah, and that just
like, what fucking planet
are
we on?
You're supposed to be able to go to, Robin, was it you that said find a person with children that's a safe person?
Yeah.
Yeah. A discussion that we had about if you're out in public and you're looking for somebody to go to when you're in trouble, it should be a woman who has a child?
That's why I'm it's hard to imagine she's not going to retract that in some way. I mean, she's a mother.
I hope to God.
At this point, I'm sorry. At this point, I don't normally get involved, but Tony, you said, sometimes when you're interviewing, you're trying to get to the next thing on this topic.
Yeah.
If you are a skilled interviewer, you are very careful about how you handle that interview.
Yeah.
And obviously,
especially with sensitive topics.
She was not. And also, that's when your true self comes out, are in those moments. I will say that till the day I die.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when you're too close to the fire, when you're too connected to these individuals from a political standpoint, which she is, you're human. She's human. And you're going to be influenced one way or another. And the modality of going down a road trying to somehow rationalize the number 15 and putting that number out there, picking that one and saying that is somehow acceptable. There's like two roads I think you can go down here with this. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you protecting this? Or is there some sort of rationalization and something else going on inside that individual that's trying to make sense of their own trauma and trying to normalize some sort of horrible shit that went on with themselves? And I'm not saying, I have no fucking idea what her history is, what her story is. I hope to God she didn't suffer through some sort of shit like this, but that's the only other modality I can think of that someone would be trying to rationalize some sort of shit like this to somehow soften the blow of their own trauma that they are trying to deal with themselves. And I'm not saying that's what's happening. I don't know the answer, but I'm trying to give some grace here because it's so fucking out there, but everything is so out there right now.
I don't want to give grace because Todd brought up a very good point. We prep before we come on the lives here. We do our research. We write up questions. We lots of research. Robin probably more than anybody.
Prepping. It's just fucking common sense. You don't say, like, unless you're going to say, why would you even say that? It's not like you're just like reading like if you're just reading your prompter and this is what's coming up, then you're a shitty interviewer.
Well,
I mean, but even then I'd be like, I read my prompter in front of me and I made the questions. And sometimes I'm like, I don't like how that's worded. I'm going to change this.
I went in and rewrote my questions before we got started. So
70% of the questions I ask are not pre-made.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know how that comes out of your mouth if you're a sane human being.
I still can't get over though. I don't think it matters even if it was 15. If any of these girls were 20. So
yeah.
It's still abhorrent.
It's still abhorrent.
It's still wrong. They're still trafficked. They're still enslaved by these people. All I can keep saying is read the book. Read the book.
Yeah.
I've covered these cases. I've covered my own cases where people have done abhorrent things, but I've read journals of the bad guys. I've never read anything by the victim.
Yeah.
This was a victim's transparent journal of her life and what happened to her. I have never in my life read something like this. It gave me, and I view myself, hopefully, and other people too, as an extremely empathetic, caring individual that champions the rights and the liberties and the mental health and wellness of absolutely everyone, especially children. I have two. They're my life. They're everything in my life. And this book, so matter of fact, my daughter, it was my birthday this past weekend. As you all know, my daughter came home for my birthday, and she had one of her friends come. And her friend, my daughter, is bragging a little bit, say, hey, you know, my dad does true crime stuff with Tony Brueski. And she goes, oh, really? And the girl said, her friend says, I'm reading Nobody's Girl. And I'm like, oh, my God.
Did you two just talk for hours on this?
Yeah, but I said, and she just started, I said, and I cautioned her. I said,
yeah,
this is a powerful book, but I said, you got to tread lightly, touch your toe in that water, because this is powerful stuff. Because that's the impact this book had on me. And I'm telling you, for anyone that makes a comment like that, if you read the book and still make comments like that, you need some counseling.
Yes. I don't know any other way to slice it. I really don't. And I don't know. I just
And as a
don't know.
woman, it's incredibly disappointing that
I
she
think
would
that's why
say
we're trying
that.
to give grace too, because I'm shocked because of knowing a little bit of her background, a little bit of what she went through, why she left Fox and having kids.
Right.
You know, I'm like,
look, they watch our show. They've reached out to us before on guests and stuff. And, you know, I respect her as a journalist, but I saw, I'm like, what the fuck are you saying?
Yeah.
Seriously, Megan, step back, retract that shit.
It's a moment.
Please.
I'd welcome her to come on with us and explain what she meant.
That'd be great.
Jesus Christ. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just, my head is spinning on this. I can get political differences. We can have different opinions and view things this way, but what the fuck was that? Yeah. This is 1,000 times more vile than the stupid shit she got fired at NBC for on the Today Show. I mean, this is just like, what the fuck? This is like fundamentally weird. There's reports that agents were told to flag Epstein records that reference Trump and other powerful figures. People are going to have this in their mind, and it may be true. It's reports. You've lived inside that world. You know, what kind of what does that actually mean? Are there things like this that happen? Are there things where it's like, okay, we're going to go through this, but if you find this, we don't need to know about that?
Not on that angle of it. So remember, I come from a world inside the FBI where I saw I understand the background. So a lot of times when I'm shining my flashlight in the dark places, I know some people get angry sometimes, but I'm just telling you like the bureaucracy works and why there's certain things and how we did certain things a certain way, yet when it grabs the public eye, it's easy to say, well, it's cover up or it's this or this. No, I'm just telling you how the bureaucracy worked and why. And this is one of those cases. There was numerous cases that I worked or instances throughout my career where we're told, hey, go through all your interviews, go through everything, go through all your files and find anything related to this. We were never told to do anything in my 22 years with the FBI to find it so we could cover it up. We were always told to find it because we had to disclose it. And if we couldn't, and I'll tell you, the threat of reciprocity, if we did not find everything and it was later found out that we didn't disclose it, was massive. I mean, we'd be put under an OPR for that.
Could that be used in reverse, though, where it's like, okay, your job, go find this, and you don't know that it's necessarily you're disclosing it, but what's the purpose of disclosure? I mean, is it to release it publicly? Is it to be part of the file? Or is it to, find this so we can redact this?
I was just going to ask about redacting. Is everything we're going to see redacted?
Find it. We need somebody to find it.
True.
But there's a reason for finding it. It's not to shine light. It's to let's sweep this away.
In every single case I've ever had, every single, I can't name them all off the top of my head, but I think there's at least 10 to 20 times throughout the course of my career where we were given a bureau-wide blast, find anything related to this. And we're always told why, and it was always because we have a congressional mandate, there's a FOIA request, there's something. So we were always told the reason why we had to find this information and how and where it was going to be going. But the likelihood, again, because I just go to laws of numbers, for someone to collect all that information to cover it up, I don't know. That just doesn't work because there's too many people who would know it. So if someone put out an all call for information, the likelihood that that's an all call to shove it in a corner someplace, slim to none, because it just wouldn't work. Just the human, again, look at all the people that were fired. Look at all the people that left. There's just too much. There's too many holes in that bucket to be able to fill to be able to do that effectively. The other thing that came up and it'll come up sometimes too is if for high level people that we're investigating or have to interview, because I know a lot of times someone has to be flagged that, hey, say we have to go interview. Like I've been part of this when my buddy was doing insider investigations and leak investigations. I mean, I was very close to guys doing this, where we have to go interview the Secretary of Defense or the Secretary of War, whoever he is now, or the president or members of Congress or anything. And what happens in those cases, very similar to these, is they get flagged, not flagged because they're going to be treated special. What typically happens, at least in all the cases I've been involved in, there can be outliers, but 22 years I'm involved in a lot, and I didn't see anything that deviated from this. And that is, these people get flagged at this higher level so that you can bring an executive with you at a similar rank with the investigator. So what happens is, say Robin Dreeke, I'm a GS-13 journeyman level as a special agent. It is my case I'm operating. Say I have to go interview the Secretary of Defense, or say I have to go interview a member of Congress, a senator or something. What will typically happen is that an executive from headquarters, that's a senior executive staff member, in other words, they have the same sort of civilian rank inside the FBI as this individual, will come along on the interview with the investigator who's actually doing the interview themselves. Why? I don't know. It's protocol, but it's never an influence type thing like I've been part of anyway. Typically, the executive will sit there, a small chit chat, and then and they'll hand it off to the interviewer, and the interviewer goes. So that is typically how it works, at least in my 22 years.
I want to throw this out there because this is kind of an observation I made yesterday. And sometimes, with time puts things into perspectives. You kind of go, oh, I didn't quite see it that way. I feel that way when I watch Dateline a lot. Even when I watch Dateline on stories that I already know really well, it's like, oh, well, when you kind of put the pieces together of the puzzle like this, new things emerge and new ways of looking at things emerge. And I don't know if I've just been blind to this the whole time. I mean, Epstein's death in itself in 2019. Obviously, a lot of people, myself included, I don't buy that he killed himself. I don't think that occurred. The fact that you don't have any cameras, that there just happens to be all these oversights that would have been able to prove that, in fact, he did it himself, don't exist, and this didn't work right. Bullshit. He was killed.
It's what me say a outlier of probabilities.
Yes, it is 1,000%. Okay, so we had that. And the thought process was, powerful people had him killed. I don't think anybody said specifically it was this person that had him killed. It was that probably a collective, maybe one that had the insight or the power to do so. But now we have perspective of these emails. And we see the dates of these emails. And we see who they were from, and who they were to, and what they were discussing, and when, and what. And there happens to be a lot of shit about Trump in them. And again, not Trump that he was doing things with the girls, but that Trump had a lot of leverage, or that Epstein had a lot of shit over Trump, business dealing wise, professional wise, enough that could destroy him professionally. Could get him in trouble financially. Just a lot of shit. And that's the mountain of shit over here. And it's interesting because he's talking about this in these emails. He's talking about delivering this information to Russia. He's talking about having this information and being able to hold it over his head. And then suddenly Jeffrey Epstein dies while Trump is president of the United States. Maybe. I wonder who had him killed.
Oh God, here come the black SUVs.
I think
they're pulling up now.
The challenge.
I'm not saying it was him. I'm just saying I wonder, because you put things in certain places. You go, this is curious.
So with all the emails that are able to be coming, I think about 2,000 pages or something like this. Here's what I think. I think that list of people that could have done that is so long.
Yeah.
It is. And this is just another one, but it's like all these emails line up where it's like talking about disclosing shit to all these.
I will go down the conspiracy theory path with you, which I never ever do. If we're looking for a pattern of behavior from past conspiracy theory conjecture, the only one that really fits a pattern, Clinton.
I was just going to say, or Clinton.
Right?
Or Clinton. No, you're exactly right. You are exactly right. Without a doubt.
People have died in Clinton's wake. I mean, there's a circle there.
You're right. No, you're right. And this is about dealing with reality on reality's terms.
Right.
Yeah.
No matter who you like, whatever. It is reality. There is a track record there. If you believe those conspiracies of a lot of the suspicious deaths around the Clintons. And there's a shitload of them.
There are.
And yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. So I would say the email evidence with Trump also rather curious. I don't know. I am saying I wonder, but it's another set of data that leads up to person with power, with information over a lot of people that suspiciously dies right at a crescendo of where this person is at the height of their power to expose you at one of your most vulnerable times and the most powerful time in your existence. And that's what Epstein held over Trump at that moment in time. He also held it over the Clintons. He also held it over a ton of other people too. So I don't know. I mean, I'm literally throwing it out there going, I don't know, but that's a new observation.
So here's what I'd be doing if I was the investigator and had access to all this thing as a behaviorist. Because again, I just look at the behavior and I look for patterns. So we have a pattern of at least one individual known, convicted, and dethroned of Prince Andrew, or just Andrew Windsor, or whatever the hell he is, right? So I would take that as a baseline of someone who is very witty of what was going on at a high, powerful level. You then take an overlay of how that communication goes, the words, usage of the back and forth, and now we have a profile of someone that was on the inner circle, inner knowledge, who was corrupt. All right. We then take that as a baseline of what we're typically looking for the types of communication, language used. But did Epstein refer to him as a dog or not as a dog? I mean, any kind of little clue you can get. You then take that as the model and you overlay it with all the other people that had email communications with Epstein and see what stands out from that baseline of normal. Because there's going to be a lot of just routine emails that are going to be baseline. And then you're going to see the Andrew one. It's going to be a spike. We're going to take that spike, take the profile of that one, and see where it overlays with everything else. And that just gives you, all right, we have some smoke. Now we got some big billows of smoke. Let's go investigate these big billows of smoke and see where this leads us. And that's what I'd be doing as the investigator is like, I have a known entity. Now I'm going to model that that known entity and see who else might fit that known entity and see where we need to investigate further. Because again, I'm not saying yes, Trump, no, Trump. I'm saying my conjecture is that Trump is one of emails that probably sound a lot like a lot of other emails that he was talking about. That's because and it might not be, and it could be an outlier, but we don't know if it's an outlier or not unless we have a baseline of how Epstein communicated with a lot of people. And that's what I would like. That's what I'd like to see. I would like to see who stands out.
It's another. It's a chessboard, and Trump is one of the pieces on that board.
Yes, one,
and he's one. And that's the I mean, he happens to be the one that's in a certain place of power right now. At the time some of these things were going on, of what he did or did not have knowledge to, he was at a very different place on that chessboard. And Epstein is the one who's the player. He's the one who was playing the pieces, and all the way up to his death. And it appears as though some of those pieces on the chessboard somehow got a mind of their own and found a way to kill the person playing with them. How many of those pieces? I don't know the answer to that question, but that observation, I think, is one to note in terms of timing. There's so many questions that are still left unknown. The fact that we don't have a lot of these files yet, with tons of these emails are dropping, and they're going to continue over the next, probably for the rest of our lives.
It's like New Year's Eve.
But the reality of it is, and I'm going to ask you this, Robin, why should the public trust anything that's coming out in any of these emails or any of the Epstein files or any list or this or that? There's been plenty of time to redact whatever needs to be redacted. There's plenty of time to delete shit that needs to be deleted. There's plenty of time to do all of this and all of that to create a public ready version of it. And all the government has to do is say, well, it encroaches on national security, so we're not going to tell you these names of these certain people. And it very well might encroach on national security because of people being compromised for these very reasons. But at the same time, that uncomfortableness, that possibility of a national security risk protects the people simultaneously.
Yeah. I would just go down the road of, does this make sense behaviorally that this would act like this way? But where I'm not looking for things that are going to be that I don't believe, because we're going to see tons we don't believe and that we're going to be skeptical of. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for an individual, an organization, an institution that does this. They say, in further review, we got this wrong. We made a mistake. Here's what we now know. And when they share that information, if it's not a good look for them, yet they still have the courage to share it, I'm paying attention to those people. Because people that have the courage to say, I made a mistake, are the ones that have a lot more credibility than anyone else. Because everyone else is saying, not me, not me, not me, and they're pointing over here. Those are the ones I never believe. Wholly, because there's a lot of rules of human behavior. One, we're all going to act in our own best interest in terms of our safety, security, and prosperity. For ourselves and those we care about. That's what we're seeing right here. People are acting out of fear and their own safety. Here's another rule of human behavior. That is the greatest thing when we're looking for assessing trustworthiness in others. We are all working on something. All of us are incredibly flawed. The people that have the courage to share their flaws and share where they're vulnerable and say, here's where I'm a little broken, but here's what I'm doing about it, those are the ones you can trust, because those are the ones saying, I am broken. I'm not perfect. Everyone else around us, they're all saying they're perfect. Don't believe them. They're not.
And there's self-awareness, which so many of these people seem to not have.
Namaste.
And that's,
Namaste.
without a doubt. All right, we solved the world's problems again. Robin Dreeke, retired FBI special agent, former chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program. Your current book, Unbreakable Alliances, available wherever books are sold. Go check it out. As always, invaluable having you on. Thank you so much, my friend, for being here. There's a lot more to come on this topic. Press subscribe so you don't miss any of these conversations wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching. Your comments are certainly wanted and needed. YouTube is where you'll find us. Search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Until next time, for Robin, Todd, and Stacy, I'm Tony Brueski. We will talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.